This is an ABC News special, Impeachment Inquiry. From ABC News headquarters, here is correspondent Aaron Katersky.
It has been an extraordinary few days for the United States. A whistleblower's complaint has upended the presidency and put Congress on a path toward possible impeachment. And today we learn the substance of the complaint. It said President Trump used the power of his office to solicit interference from a foreign country in the 2020 U.S. election. The complaint said the president used much of his July 25th phone call with Ukrainian President Zelensky to advance his personal interests and to pressure the Ukrainian leader into investigating Joe Biden. Upon hearing that, the complaint said senior White House officials scrambled to lock down all records of the phone call on a highly secure server. So was there a cover-up in the White House? ABC News chief legal analyst Dan Abrams is here with us. And Dan, the complaint is highly detailed and rather stunning.
The most important thing is not just what the whistleblower's allegations are, but the language of the inspector general, right? Because anytime there's an allegation, the first thing you want to look for is corroboration. People saying, oh, this guy's relying on other people, it's all secondhand. But if you read the inspector general's report on this, it specifically says, particularly given the other information the inspector general obtained during its preliminary review, adding to the credibility of it, making it clear that there was this period where the inspector general went and, at least to some degree, tried to confirm much of what the whistleblower was alleging.
Because in a way, the whistleblower complaint, though it's from one individual in the intelligence community, it's almost an amalgam of the alarms raised by a number of senior White House officials.
Yes, but, some people are going to say, how can we trust this person, et cetera? Look, number one is it's consistent with the transcript, the rough transcript of the phone call that came out. But the whistleblower's allegation provides a bigger picture than just the transcript. It's also, just as importantly, this allegation of a cover-up. I mean, if it's really true that White House officials said they were, quote, directed by White House lawyers to remove the electronic transcript from the computer system where they're typically stored and put on into a separate electronic system used to store and handle classified information of an especially sensitive nature when, according to, this is the whistleblower saying this, one White House official described this as an act of abuse because the call did not contain anything remotely sensitive from a national security perspective. I mean, that's a scandal in and of itself.
Dan, the whistleblower's complaint, beyond the call and the alleged cover-up, also talks about what happened in the aftermath of the call, where Ukrainian officials are trying to navigate, is the word used in the complaint, the demands that the president had made of President Zelensky.
There's no question if what the whistleblower says is true, it was a quid pro quo. I mean, that's going to be the question that has to be resolved, right? I mean, the whistleblower's report is basically saying that the Ukrainians interpreted this to mean either play ball with us on the president's personal projects, or, you're not going to get your funding, you're not going to get the things you need, et cetera. Now, the call itself doesn't offer that, right? For the call itself, the rough transcript, you can read between the lines a bit there, but, the president would have the same defense I think anyone in those circumstances would have, which is, I wasn't saying, unless you do it, I'll do that.
I wanted to ask you about some of the things that the whistleblower alleges happened prior to the phone call. In May, Vice President Pence was supposed to go to Ukraine. That was canceled. Instead, Energy Secretary Rick Perry led the American delegation to Zelensky's inauguration. And the American officials seemed to be, according to the complaint, feeling out how Zelensky was going to do. And was he willing to, the quote is, play ball?
This is one of the most serious allegations, if not the most serious, in the entire whistleblower report. And it comes in the appendix, basically saying that officials are telling him that it was made clear that the president wouldn't meet with Zelensky until he saw how Zelensky, quote, chose to act. And, if that meant play ball, if that meant the president's personal projects, that's a quid pro quo. Now, again, we keep using the term quid pro quo like, and I keep using it too, as if that would change everything. It really would only change things with regard to the way I think Congress would act here. I mean, this really does now come down to impeachment. If it's just the call, that's less troubling than if everything else that the whistleblower is alleging surrounding the call ends up being true.
Dan Abrams, our chief legal analyst here at ABC News. The whistleblower complaint also raises questions about the role of President Trump's personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani. He was openly contacting Ukrainian officials. ABC's Patrick Reevell joins us now from Kiev. And Patrick, you spoke to one of those officials today.
Yeah, it's very interesting. One of them who was mentioned in the whistleblower's report, his name is Andrei Telizhenko, and he was a former diplomat. He was in the the Ukrainian embassy in D.C. In 2016. And he's previously alleged that he was enlisted by a pro-Clinton Ukrainian into researching links between Donald Trump and Russia as sort of opposition research. And he's presented that as a broader effort by Ukraine to interfere on behalf of Hillary Clinton. And so he's an obvious target for Rudy Giuliani, who was obviously looking for people because one of Rudy Giuliani's arguments is that Ukraine meddled in the 2016 election and actually was the source of the Russia investigation. And when I talked to Mr. Telizhenko today, he basically said that, we had general conversations about Ukrainian politics, and in particular we had conversations about how to try and get investigations reopened or opened in Ukraine. And he said he used to work in the Ukrainian prosecutor's office and that he says that he knows the process. He says that he and Mr. Giuliani basically discussed how to do that, in particular how to get investigations reopened into Hunter Biden, Joe Biden's son, and also this argument that they have that there was collusion between Ukraine and the Democratic National Committee.
Patrick, the narrative about Joe Biden and Hunter Biden that's been promulgated by Giuliani and to a certain degree by President Trump, is there in Kiev where it appears to have originated? I think,
the first thing to say is that obviously Hunter Biden's position on this company, Burisma, this energy company, it does not look good. It looks like he was profiting from his father's name. It's hard to understand why else he would have been selected by this Ukrainian oligarch as someone who he would want on his board. And I think one of the interesting things we've heard is that actually just simply having someone like Joe Biden's son on your board in Ukraine would create the impression that you have access, even if you don't, and that is valuable in Ukraine. But having said that, what is being alleged by Rudy Giuliani and ultimately President Trump is far more serious, and that's that Joe Biden used his power as vice president to protect his son by having this prosecutor fired, and that certainly, just the facts don't support it. The prosecutor that was fired, that Biden pushed to have fired, was actually overseeing a department that had stalled an investigation into the company that Hunter Biden was sitting on the board of. And so, if he wanted to protect his son, firing this prosecutor was unlikely, would be a very strange way to have gone about it. And secondly, and very importantly, it wasn't simply, Joe Biden's idea to fire this prosecutor. The entire European Union was demanding that this prosecutor be removed. Frankly, no. The answer is that the allegations that Joe Biden acted improperly, there's no evidence that he did, and the facts actually seem to suggest the opposite.
ABC's Patrick Reevell with us from Kiev. President Trump, though, of course, sees this differently. He has just now tweeted that as vice president, Biden had his son take out millions of dollars by strong-arming the Ukrainian president, also looted millions from China. Bad, the president's tweet says. Mary Alice Parks is our deputy political director. No matter the facts on Biden, Mary Alice, the president's having none of it.
And not addressing the substance of the transcript. What is really interesting to me is that we've seen a new strategy of deflection, where the president is saying it is more important to attack political allies, past and present, than address some of the allegations that Democrats are making about what he has been doing in the White House.
ABC's Mary Alice Parks, our deputy political director. We will get more from Mary Alice as we continue our coverage of the impeachment inquiry, and coming up, the acting director of national intelligence, why he held on to the complaint. I'm Aaron Katursky. You're listening to live coverage from ABC News.
ABC News, straightforward. This is what being live is all about.
I can see pushing through.
This is ABC News
Entire
Live.
neighborhoods are underwater.
24/7 streaming news source from ABC News.
There it goes.
Imagine breaking news, live events as they happen, streaming live, non-stop, straight to you. Imagine instant, incredible access to the most compelling live video.
That's a grenade.
Original, on the edge, breakthrough storytelling from ABC News, National Geographic, ESPN, all the most innovative storytellers, all designed differently for you to stream straight to any screen whenever you want, free. And imagine the most celebrated, epic live events and moments,
This is live?
all playing out right before your eyes.
See those flames behind me?
Go
We're
there
trying
now.
to put this fire out right now.
ABC News Live. Think of it as your live streaming adrenaline rush.
Just look at all of the smoke here.
Real, raw,
Welcome to the
live.
Columbus Zoo.
No matter where the next step takes us, we're taking it. Wow.
That's what first responders were worried about.
And go deeper inside the groundbreaking exclusives from the campaign trail only ABC News gets. Behind the scenes, exclusive access.
Take you inside for an extraordinary tour here on ABC News Live. This is it.
It's time to go there, be there, experience it, live on the scene. Maybe that's why, in just 1 year, ABC News Live is already America's #1 live streaming news. And imagine this, it's free.
Wow.
Watch ABC News Live right now and anytime, streaming on Roku, Hulu, Facebook, and abcnews.com. It's that easy to go there. ABC News Live.
What you're seeing right now, this is part of the eye wall.
This procession of migrants goes back 2 miles.
There is going to be catastrophic damage.
This fire has made a run. You can see those flames shooting up into the sky.
We are on the jam-packed red carpet.
To the right, guys.
So this is the 4th weekend of protest.
Watch ABC News on location for Facebook Watch.
Doctors. Potatoes. Ismail? Yes. David.
Over ground zero from Hurricane Michael.
You can see just home after home.
David, nice to meet you.
This was your view.
My favorite view.
These guys appreciate it.
Roy was bleeding out on the floor. They told me he was clinical dead.
One of the trainers has come forward now saying
I know.
that Roy essentially was to blame.
No way.
2020, Friday at 9/8 Central on ABC.
That's exactly how I feel. That's exactly how I feel. That's exactly how I feel. Love me or hate me. Ooh, I ain't changing. And I don't give
People come here because they know folks are watching.
Preach, Whoopi.
New season,
New view. You feeling it? Preach, girl.
on ABC.
Exactly.
That's the view, y'all.
I feel.
ABC News, America's #1 news source. Straightforward news, straight to the heart of the story. ABC News, straightforward.
This is an ABC News special, Impeachment Inquiry. From ABC News headquarters, here is correspondent Aaron Katursky.
The whistleblower complaint made public today shows the appearance that President Trump was using foreign policy as leverage to pressure Ukraine into producing dirt on Joe Biden. That is now at the heart of the calls to impeach him. And today, the first hearing since House Speaker Nancy Pelosi announced the inquiry. It featured Acting Director of National Intelligence Joseph McGuire explaining why he initially kept the complaint from Congress.
Upon reviewing the complaint, we were immediately struck by the fact that many of the allegations in the complaint are based on a conversation between the president and another foreign leader. Such calls are typically subject to executive privilege.
So he defended his decision by invoking an executive privilege. But then McGuire ended up defending the whistleblower.
You don't believe the whistleblower is a political hack, do you, Director?
I believe that, as I said before, Mr. Chairman, I believe the whistleblower is operating in good faith.
ABC's Serena Marshall was on Capitol Hill for today's hearing. She joins us now from Washington. And Serena, through all the questions about McGuire's actions upon receiving the complaint, the Democrats really seem to be out to establish the whistleblower's credibility.
That, Aaron, seemed to be at the heart of what the Democrats wanted to do today. They didn't talk about what was in the complaint. They didn't even talk about the transcript or memo that was released by the White House, really. They kept coming back to that question over and over again. Was the whistleblower operating good faith? Was the whistleblower a political hack? Did they follow the appropriate procedure for doing this? Remember, the president earlier this week claimed that the whistleblower was a political hack, that this was all partisanship, and they are hacking away at that argument using one of the president's own administration officials. And that was really something to behold, because they are wanting the complaint to stand on its own. They are looking at a long-term play here by making sure that not only is the whistleblower credible, not only did they get the acting DNI McGuire to stipulate that this was a credible complaint as well, but that they want to move forward with this in an investigative and deliberate manner. And McGuire was on the Hill for nearly 6 hours today, split first between the public hearing in the House and then behind closed doors over in the Senate, along with the Inspector General who sat in the Senate. And many of those members of Congress over in the Senate said some of the testimony they received from both of those administration officials was forthcoming, it was transparent, and you had some Republicans say this will generate more questions than we asked today.
And Republicans in the hearing took a bit of a different tack. They did not defend the president's conduct on the call with the Ukrainian leader, but they sure did blast the Democrats.
Yeah, they had no problem blasting the Democrats. They echoed some of the president's talking points, saying this is an expansion of the witch hunt. This is all the Democrats playing politics. They're upset that they didn't win in 2016, so they're trying to relitigate the election and relitigate Mueller. But it was very telling that they did not defend the president. In fact, Aaron, you had one member of the GOP essentially split with his party and criticize the president. He said that that conversation between the president and the Ukrainian president was, quote, not okay. He said that he believed many citizens reading that transcript would find that call not okay, but he did not go any further in criticizing the president in any way. In fact, again, it went back to saying that Democrats were moving too fast in this impeachment inquiry. But Aaron, I want to emphasize this. The folks we should be watching are the Intelligence Committee in the Senate. They've, throughout all of the Mueller investigation, acted very deliberately, very united. They were trying not to come across as partisan, and I think we're seeing the exact same thing here in terms of this whistleblower complaint. They had that closed-door session today with, like I said, the Intelligence Acting Director, as well as the Inspector General, who forwarded that complaint and called it credible. And that was closed door for a reason. They left that meeting. We didn't hear a lot of defense of the president, and we also didn't hear a lot of criticism of the whistleblower. In fact, many were concerned about making sure that whistleblower continued to be protected. That's the committee we're going to want to watch going forward.
ABC's Serena Marshall with us live from Washington after covering today's hearing on Capitol Hill. Serena, thanks. As she mentioned, committee members questioned McGuire for more than 3 hours in an open session. And while many of the questions focused on process, how and why the whistleblower complaint was initially handled, there was a bit of discussion on some of the allegations that the whistleblower's letter brought up, including whether the White House tried to hide records of the president's conversation with President Zelensky or asked for foreign assistance in a U.S. election. I want to bring back ABC News political analyst Mary Alice Parks here in a second, because McGuire also testified that he doesn't know who the whistleblower is, but he did say that he thinks he or she is acting in good faith, and that was a key part Coming up here in a bit, we're going to talk with one of the Democratic congressmen who questioned McGuire today in order to get his take on whether he believes that the hearing was successful. But the news was coming fast. New information was coming out rather quickly today. And ABC's Mary Alice Parks is here with us, our deputy political director. Mary Alice, did the Democrats do a good job in this hearing, this initial first hearing out of the box in the impeachment inquiry, of painting the administration's actions, at the very least, as sketchy?
Sketchy, I'm not sure that's a legal term, but I do know that the Democrats really seemed focused and to have some coordinated messaging strategy. They seemed like their primary objective was to solidify the whistleblower's credibility. They repeatedly took the president's own words about the whistleblower back to the director of national intelligence and got him to say over and over that he did not have reason to doubt the credibility of the whistleblower and to confirm that he was standing by the IG's assessment that the whistleblower's claims were urgent and serious.
And on the Republican side, as Serena outlined to us, they did not defend the president's conduct. They seemed to echo the president's denunciation of this whole thing and really attack the Democrats who brought it up in the first place.
You're exactly right. We saw the ranking member use his first salvo to talk about how he thought it was inappropriate that any transcript of the president's conversations with a foreign leader would ever have to come to light. He seemed to express concern that there were leaks from the White House, concern over the concept of whistleblowers altogether, but really it didn't even get to the substance of the transcript or the substance of the allegations in the whistleblower's claim.
How are Republicans going to play this going forward?
It's going to be tough, especially if they want to dance around the substance of this. You know, I think that they would like to chip away at the whistleblower's credibility. We saw a number of Republicans start to zero in on the fact that the whistleblower claims he or she, or not claims, I should say, admits outright that he or she did not directly witness a lot of the events, but got their information from White House sources or government officials. So you can see the Republicans will probably continue to drive at that point. But, you know, if they're taking a page from the president, they're going to try to deflect. And that might work with some of their most ardent supporters, but it might be harder for more skeptical independent voters to constantly put up with deflecting questions.
Leading to my next question about how Democrats on the campaign trail are going to start to play this.
Yeah, so far we saw 2020 Democratic candidates really hold no punches. We saw Senator Cory Booker, for instance, come out strong and basically claim that the president was acting in almost a treasonous manner by asking for outside assistance in an election. I don't expect that any of the Democratic candidates are going to beat around the bush on this one. Democrats feel like they can message this, and they also feel like it really presents a national security concern. You can imagine if you're running a presidential campaign, you don't like the idea that the weight of the U.S. government might be spent looking into digging up dirt. So I expect Democrats will punch back.
It's like Mars versus Venus, the two parties on different planets when it comes to this whole impeachment inquiry that has been started this week. ABC News Deputy Political Director Mary Alice Parks. More from her as we go on. While the acting director of national intelligence was testifying on Capitol Hill, President Trump was in a closed-door meeting with staff here in New York, unleashing. Coming up, we'll get the president's view and hear some of what he said, comparing the whistleblower to a spy. I'm Aaron Katursky. You're listening to a special presentation from ABC News.
ABC News, straightforward.
Doctors. Ismail? Yes. David.
Over ground zero from Hurricane Michael.
You can see just home after home.
David, good to meet you.
This was your view.
My favorite view.
These guys appreciate it.
In times like these, the news-making events happen here. ABC News.
President Trump meeting face-to-face with one of the world's most brutal dictators, Kim Jong-un.
The president.
Do you trust him? I do trust him, yeah. I think he trusts me, and I trust him.
Ivanka Trump.
I have to ask you about your emails. Your father had taken Hillary Clinton to task for this.
There just is no equivalency.
So the idea of lock her up doesn't apply to you?
No.
Comey.
How strange is it for you to sit here and compare the president to a mob boss?
Very strange.
Michelle Obama.
What do you wish you could tell your pre-White House self?
Whew. Melania Trump.
Do you think there's still people there that he can't trust?
Yes.
Still working now?
Yes.
Michael Cohen.
So he's still lying?
Yes.
It's a big statement.
And now, in a year with so much on the line, we're right there.
Good evening tonight from Washington, a very busy news night.
America's #1 news source, ABC News, straightforward.
Okay, imagine the morning. I'm talking about a good morning. Imagine starting your day off with friends. What's better than that? You know, like the crazy smart friend who always keeps you in the know. The friend with a huge heart and smile who just makes everything better. Imagine hearing from people who open your eyes and your heart. Imagine knowing what's coming next in the day ahead. Well, I get to live this each morning together with you. Imagine that. How blessed am I? And that's what makes it such a good morning, America.
What you're seeing right now, this is part of the eye wall.
This procession of migrants goes back 2 miles.
There is going to be catastrophic damage.
This fire has made a run. You can see those flames shooting up into the sky.
We are on the jam-packed red carpet.
To the right, guys.
So this is the 4th weekend of protest.
Watch ABC News on location for Facebook Watch.
The world may feel out of your control, but your happiness doesn't have to be. Learn the secrets to happiness. Listen to the 10% Happier podcast, free on Apple Podcasts.
The most powerful stories of our time, anytime. Nightline.
The tiger was on top of Roy.
Roy was bleeding out on the floor. They told me he was clinical dead.
Why would the tiger go after Roy? Because it's a tiger.
You had said that Roy was not attacked.
No, it was an accident.
One of the trainers has come forward now saying
I know.
that Roy essentially was to blame.
No way.
Now, stunning new details and the emotional new interview of Siegfried and Roy together 2020 Friday at 9/8 Central on ABC. What happens when Tiger Woods goes one-on-one with Michael Strahan?
What else do you see as your legacy? How would you define yourself?
Tomorrow.
Get in the hole!
You will see Tiger, Michael, tomorrow only on ABC's Good Morning America.
The world may feel out of your control, but your happiness doesn't have to be. Learn the secrets to happiness. Listen to the 10% Happier podcast, free on Apple Podcasts.
This is an ABC News special, Impeachment Inquiry. From ABC News headquarters, here is correspondent Aaron Katursky.
The first hearing since this week's announcement of an impeachment inquiry into President Trump defined the battle lines. House Intelligence Chairman Adam Schiff alleged President Trump sacrificed our national security and the Constitution for his personal political benefit. Schiff said the White House memorandum of his call with the Ukrainian leader read like a classic organized crime shakedown. Ranking member Devin Nunes said the whistleblower complaint relied on hearsay evidence and accused the Democrats of mania to overturn the 2016 election. We're joined now by Democratic Congressman Krishnamoorthy, who questioned the acting director of national intelligence, Joseph McGuire, today. Congressman, you seemed concerned in your line of questioning with affirming the whistleblower's credibility.
You believe that the whistleblower was operating in good faith?
I do.
And without bias?
I don't know about that. I do not know about that. I do believe that the
But you have no reason to believe that he or she was acting with bias, correct?
I just believe that the whistleblower was acting in good faith.
Your line of questioning appeared to concern the credibility of the whistleblower. Did Democrats go in with a strategy to try and build up this whistleblower? Was that a deliberate line on your part?
Well, I think that the president and some of my colleagues on the other side want to denigrate the whistleblower's credibility. So I thought it was important to point out the indicia of credibility in this whistleblower, and to also point out that the Republican-appointed Inspector General was the one who actually brought this to our attention. So he was appointed by Donald Trump, but he brought this complaint to our attention, said it was credible and urgent, even though it pointed right at his boss for wrongdoing.
Were you satisfied with the acting director of national intelligence and how he testified today? Several times he was questioned about whether he had ever mentioned the whistleblower complaint to the president, and he declined to answer.
So first of all, I think that he seems like a good man, honorable man, but he made some bad decisions. And one of those decisions was listening to the White House and Bill Barr and the Justice Department to withhold that complaint from Congress. Had the Inspector General, the Republican-appointed Inspector General, not brought the complaint to our attention, we would probably never have known about it. And so it was very disturbing to learn that others told him to conceal or withhold the complaint from us.
Congressman, as you've just started to look into some of this, is there anything in the complaint that strikes you as better or worse than something else? There's the phone call, but then the whistleblower said they were told by unidentified officials White House lawyers wanted to store a transcript of the president's call in a way to limit who could get access to it.
Correct. That was a weird fact and very troubling. That, if you look in the appendix in the first paragraph, they talk about storing the transcript of an otherwise normal phone call, right, between President Trump and a Ukrainian president on the same server where they basically store code word level operations. So basically like covert action types of conversations. That's very unusual. It seems to scream cover up right there.
And so how is your committee going to proceed then? Who do you next want to interview, and do you believe you'll get cooperation?
Well, I think that we want the whistleblower to be able to come forward and tell us his or her story. The DNI, the acting DNI McGuire, to his credit, told us today that he would have no objections with the whistleblower coming forward. I think they're trying to make the arrangements for that to be able to happen. We would just want that to happen sooner rather than later, because I'm very concerned about the president making intimidatory types of statements about the whistleblower. And, we have to protect the whistleblower.
Yeah, in fact, we've confirmed what was first reported in the New York Times, that when the president spoke to staff and diplomats at the U.S. mission to the United Nations, he said, I want to know who's the person that gave the whistleblower the information, because that's close to a spy. You know what we used to do in the old days when we were smart with spies and treason, right? We used to handle it a little differently than we do now. Quoting there from President Trump behind closed doors at the UN. Does that concern you?
Yes, that type of talk could possibly be the same type of intimidation that he tried to use with different witnesses in the Mueller investigation, if you recall. For instance, he called Michael Cohen a rat and so forth. We can't have people think that if they bring wrongdoing to the attention of Congress, that they will face punishment. And that is the type of atmosphere that Mr. Trump is creating. And I just want to say to all those who are listening to your program who may possess information about misconduct, whether it's in this case or in any other case, they should come to Congress. We will protect them under the whistleblower statutes. The American people want them to come forward with evidence of wrongdoing.
Congressman Raja Krishnamoorthy, our thanks to you for joining us from Capitol Hill following today's hearing at which he questioned the acting director of national intelligence. President Trump was tuning in on his way back to Washington from New York, and as soon as he stepped off Air Force One at Joint Base Andrews, he came immediately to reporter microphones.
I have to put up with Adam Schiff on an absolutely perfect phone call
to the new president of Ukraine. That was a perfect call. But Adam Schiff doesn't talk about Joe Biden and his son walking away with millions of dollars from Ukraine and then millions of dollars from China, walking away in a quick meeting, walking away with millions of dollars. He doesn't talk about Joe Biden firing a prosecutor. And if that prosecutor's not fired, he's not going to give him money from the United States of America. They don't talk about that. My call was perfect. The president yesterday of Ukraine said there was no pressure put on him whatsoever, none whatsoever. And he said it loud and clear for the press.
President Trump earlier today upon descending Air Force One at Joint Base Andrews. Later, when he arrived at the White House, he did not take any questions from assembled reporters. He had a couple of events, but did not answer questions at those events. But when he was in New York earlier today, he was venting to the staff at the U.S. mission to the United Nations. So coming up, you'll hear some of that audio, and we'll also talk to our White House correspondent, Karen Travers, about how the White House is going to handle this inquiry going forward. The impeachment inquiry at the House of Representatives into President Trump is well underway, one hearing down, and more to come. Stay with us. I'm Aaron Katursky. You're listening to a special presentation from ABC News.
ABC News, straightforward.
Okay, imagine the morning. I'm talking about a good morning. Imagine starting your day off with friends. What's better than that? You know, like the crazy smart friend who always keeps you in the know. The friend with the huge heart and smile who just makes everything better. Imagine hearing from people who open your eyes and your heart. Imagine knowing what's coming next in the day ahead. Well, I get to live this each morning together with you. Imagine that. How blessed am I? And that's what makes it such a good morning, America.
This is what being live is all about. This is ABC News Live, the 24/7 streaming news source from ABC News. Breaking news, live events, streaming nonstop. Original breakthrough storytelling from ABC News, National Geographic, ESPN, and it's all designed differently for you to stream straight to any screen whenever you want. Free. ABC News Live. Stream it now or anytime on Roku, Hulu, Facebook, and abcnews.com.
Doctors, Batatas. Ismail? Yes. David.
Over ground zero from Hurricane Michael.
You can see just home after home.
David, nice to meet you.
This was your view.
My favorite meal.
These guys appreciate it.
What you're seeing right now, this is part of the eye wall.
This procession of migrants goes back 2 miles.
There is going to be catastrophic damage.
This fire has made a run. You can see those flames shooting up into the sky.
We are on the jam-packed red carpet.
To the right, guys.
So this is the 4th weekend of protest.
Watch ABC News on location for Facebook Watch every day.
The most powerful stories of our time, anytime. Nightline.
What's the most innovative daily news podcast out there to listen to every day? Well, the Edward R. Murrow Awards say it's Start Here, the daily news podcast from ABC News. Even the New York Times calls us a top news podcast worth listening to. Start Here, free on Apple Podcasts.
Your mom said, comb your hair. Your dad told you, smarten up. Your dog is judging you right now. And your best friend just called you crazy. We all need someone who'll pull no punches and give it to us straight. Now, imagine getting your news like that. No bull, no spin, just give it to me straight. Straightforward news, straight to the heart of the story. ABC News, straightforward.
What happens when Tiger Woods goes one-on-one with Michael Strahan?
What else do you see as your legacy? How would you define yourself?
Tomorrow.
Get in the hole!
You will see Tiger, Michael, tomorrow, only on ABC's Good Morning America.
Ladies, are you ready?
Michael!
goods, Aaron?
Come on, Kiki. I'm going to have some fun with this. We're going to talk about the goods.
We're talking right here in Times Square.
This is amazing, and it's funny.
I watch this show all the time. Whoa! Stop! You know, we family.
We out here,
We out here, y'all. Trajan, Sarah, and Kiki.
It's daytime talk done differently. Lunchtime at 1 Eastern, 12 Central, and Pacific on ABC.
And that's the wrap.
ABC News, America's #1 news source. Straightforward news, straight to the heart of the story. ABC News, straightforward.
This is an ABC News special, Impeachment Inquiry. From ABC News headquarters, here is correspondent Aaron Katursky.
As his acting director of national intelligence testified today on Capitol Hill, President Trump was venting behind closed doors to the staff at the U.S. mission to the United Nations. ABC News White House correspondent Karen Travers joins us now. Just 3 days ago, Karen, the president said he put no pressure on Ukraine. He said he could have, and it might have been okay if he did. Today, he was much angrier.
Yeah, there were a couple clear signs that the president was not in a great mood today. He didn't take any questions from reporters at Joint Base Andrews when Air Force One got back to Washington, and he didn't take any questions back here at the White House. He usually does that. And of all the days, we fully expected that the president would want to have that exchange with reporters because Aaron, he kind of thrives on it. You know, he gets energy off of it. And after what seemed to be a pretty low energy, lackluster performance at a press conference yesterday, we thought he might be ready to tangle. But instead, he got off of Air Force One and he was venting. He says that the Democrats' impeachment inquiry is a disgrace to this country. He says it's another witch hunt. But notably, Aaron, he didn't address the substance of what the whistleblower complaint actually detailed and did not engage at all then about some of the allegations that are in there, not just about that phone call with the Ukrainian president, but what people around him in the White House did to try and squirrel away, hide those records related to the call.
Because if, as the president has said, Karen, it was a perfect phone call that was so innocent, so nice, as he has said publicly, why would White House officials feel the need to take the steps that the complaint alleges they did?
And that was going to be my question to the president, in fact, today at the White House. And, you know, if it's so perfect and innocent, as the president has been saying for days, why go to this great lengths to try and push it away and treat it in a different way than usual national security calls or sensitive issue calls? And I think it's also notable that, according to the whistleblower complaint, this wasn't the first time that action like that was taken related to a presidential record or transcript. That is going to spark a lot more questions then of what other world leaders, what other events were also handled in this way in order to not let it get out.
And Karen, Democrats were ready to take on some of the president's criticisms of the whistleblower. They were able to try and get at some of that in the hearing with the acting director of national intelligence.
And I think they effectively used Joseph McGuire, the acting DNI, to counter the president's rhetoric. You know, this week he has attacked the credibility of the whistleblower. He's called them highly partisan. He's asked if they are, quote, on our country's side. And you had Adam Schiff, the House Intelligence Committee chairman, a Democrat, ask Joseph McGuire point blank, you don't believe the whistleblower is a political hack, do you? And McGuire said he believes the whistleblower did the right thing and that he followed the law every step of the way. That was going to be my other question to the president. Do you disagree with that?
Karen, the president didn't just attack the credibility of the whistleblower. He has gone much, much farther than that.
The president had a private event today in New York. He was speaking to a room of diplomats, and it was closed to the press. But the Los Angeles Times got a recording of the president's remarks. They posted a clip on their website where the president said that the whistleblower is, quote, almost a spy.
Basically, that person never saw the report, never saw the call, meaning never saw the call, heard something, and decided that he or she, whoever the hell it is, sort of like almost a spy. I want to know who's the person that gave the whistleblower, who's the person that gave the whistleblower the information, because that's close to a spy. You know what we used to do in the old days when we were smart, right? The spies and treasons, right? We used to handle it a little differently than we do now.
Certainly some very chilling comments from the president, and to hear him say that, suggesting that there should be something done to this whistleblower, I think that is sending shockwaves through Washington.
Yeah, ABC's Karen Travers there at the White House. Let me pull Mary Alice Parks, our deputy political director, back into the conversation. Mary Alice, in the old days, I guess spies and traitors were put to death. Was that the inference?
Senator Amy Klobuchar, who's obviously running for president herself, but is a sitting senator, she said that that's how she heard it. She wrote, translation, the president is insinuating that those who assisted the whistleblower could be executed like in the old days. Amy Klobuchar said the president knows no limits. So, exactly like Karen said, shockwaves around Washington that felt like really harsh words from the president.
And what do lawmakers do with that? I mean, is the president serious?
Part of the problem is, how do you keep whistleblowers safe and feeling protected? There's a lot of conversation right now about whether this whole episode will just make it too hard for other whistleblowers to come forward. And does it have an effect on the president's relationship with other foreign powers? Even if he's not having these kinds of conversations with other foreign leaders, is the press coverage right now essentially sending a message to any foreign government that if they find dirt on a political opponent, they might be able to ingratiate themselves with this president?
Our deputy political director here at ABC News, Mary Alice Parks. More from her and from Karen Travers in a moment as we continue our coverage of the impeachment inquiry and the first hearing held today. Stay with us. I'm Aaron Katursky. You're listening to a special presentation from ABC News.
ABC News, straightforward.
This is what being live is all about.
I can see pushing through.
This is ABC News Live.
Neighborhoods are underwater.
A 24/7 streaming news source from ABC News.
There it goes.
Imagine breaking news, live events as they happen, streaming live, non-stop, straight to you. Imagine instant, incredible access to the most compelling live video.
That's a grenade.
Original, on the edge, breakthrough storytelling from ABC News, National Geographic, ESPN, all the most innovative storytellers, all designed differently for you to stream straight to any screen whenever you want, free. And imagine the most celebrated, epic live events and moments,
This is live?
all playing out right before your eyes.
See those flames behind me?
Go
We're
there
trying to
now.
put this fire out right
With
now.
ABC News Live. Think of it as your live streaming adrenaline rush.
Just look at all of the smoke here.
Real, raw,
Welcome to the
live.
Columbus Zoo.
No matter where the next step takes us, we're taking it.
Wow. That's what first responders were worried about.
And go deeper inside the groundbreaking exclusives from the campaign trail only ABC News gets. Behind the scenes, exclusive access.
Take you inside for an extraordinary tour here at ABC News Live. This is it.
It's time to go there, be there, experience it, live on the scene. Maybe that's why, in just 1 year, ABC News Live is already America's #1 live streaming news. And imagine this, it's free.
Wow.
Watch ABC News Live right now and anytime, streaming on Roku, Hulu, Facebook, and abcnews.com. It's that easy to go there. ABC News Live.
And we certainly do say good morning, America.
Hit it, people.
A lot of smiles around here this morning.
We can feel it in here, people. We can feel it.
Incredible.
We're going to celebrate.
We got it all.
A big morning in Times Square. So much excitement.
Makes you feel good, though.
Yeah.
That's how I feel every morning.
Oh, yeah. That's pretty good.
You don't want to miss that.
This is going to be good.
That's exactly how I feel. That's exactly how I feel. That's exactly how I feel. Love me or hate me, who ain't changing, and I don't give.
People come here because they know folks are watching.
Preach, Whoopi. Yeah. New view. That's exactly how I feel.
New season.
Preach, girl. You feeling it? On ABC.
That's
This is an ABC News special, Impeachment Inquiry. From ABC News headquarters, here is correspondent Aaron Katursky.
A remarkable stretch in American life as more details emerge today about what the president said and the efforts to shield it from public view. I want to get a couple of final thoughts. First, from Karen Travers, our White House correspondent. Karen, this was supposed to be the president's week in a way on the world stage at the UN General Assembly. We thought maybe confronting Iran. A very different week has emerged.
Yeah, nothing has gotten done in Washington this week. Of course, everybody is focused on this impeachment inquiry. The president himself said a couple months ago, when Democrats were going down their various tracks of investigations into his private businesses, into his family, into payments he made to people, that the president said he couldn't work with Democrats on policy while they were investigating him. This is a whole nother level to this. There is very little chance that you could see the president willing to engage with House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and her leadership team while an impeachment inquiry is happening. And that's a problem for the president and his reelection campaign. They have been looking to have one big thing, maybe two big things if they could, that they could say to voters, look what we've done. This is going to be complete gridlock until this process wraps up in whatever way it does.
ABC's Karen Travers. More to come from her post at the White House. And our deputy political director, Mary Alice Parks. Karen alludes to, Mary Alice, the gridlock this is likely to cause. Is that your sense going forward?
Absolutely, because this is unprecedented. And that was the word used by the director of national intelligence there in the witness stand. As a witness, he said this was something the country is just not used to seeing. I mean, it was a historic day. You had Congress investigating a whistleblower who was lobbing allegations, not at some staffer or undersecretary, but lobbing allegations at the commander-in-chief. And the members of the Congress who were sitting there in that committee room were involved in deep, kind of wonky questions on process that started to unveil just how hard it is to investigate allegations at the commander-in-chief. There's not good precedent for that. It's hard to know if it can be if the president can exert executive privilege. It's hard to know how to handle exertions of executive privilege. You saw Democrats really accuse the director of the national intelligence of asking for legal advice from the White House and the Department of Justice because they thought that was inappropriate since the White House and the Department of Justice are named in the whistleblower complaint. But you had the director of national intelligence basically throw up his hands and say he wasn't sure what to do. He thought he was following protocol. I mean, these are just unbelievably heady questions, and it's going to take weeks and months for Congress to parse through them.
ABC's Mary Alice Parks, our deputy political director, with us live from Washington. The whistleblower complaint now at the center of an impeachment inquiry of President Trump alleged he used the power of his office to solicit interference from a foreign country, Ukraine, to investigate a domestic political rival, Joe Biden. And the complaint says White House officials took steps to cover it up. The explosive complaint with reverberations yet to come. I'm Aaron Katursky. Thanks for joining us here at ABC News.
ABC News, honored winner of 4 Edward R. Murrow Awards. ABC News, America's news choice.